The colony ship Sunward Grace had no guns. She had no armor. She was just a slow and heavy vessel full of families who wanted a new place to live. 2,000 people were on board. Some were old, some were very young. Most of them were sleeping when the Dreth warships came. The Dreth did not fire. That was the strange part. They just surrounded the Sunward Grace on all sides and held her there in the dark of space. Then Warlord Voth Karam opened a channel, not a private channel, an open one, a channel that reached every ship within 12 light years. His voice was deep and slow. He spoke the way a man speaks when he is certain no one will argue with him. He said, "Pathetic humans, you scatter like insects when the light comes on. There is no warrior, only an extermination." Then he closed the channel. He had the Sunward Grace locked in a tow beam and pulled toward Dreth space. He did not say what he planned to do with the people inside. He did not need to say it. Those 12 words traveled fast. They hit the bridge of every human vessel in the sector at the same moment. They came through speakers on warships and patrol boats and old cargo haulers and a battered mining barge that had seen better days. Every human who heard them went still. On the strike carrier, CNS Resilient Edge Commander Dale Rutherford was sitting in his chair drinking coffee. He was a quiet man with a scar along his jaw and eyes that did not show much. When the broadcast ended, he did not stand. He did not shout. He sat for a moment and looked at the cup in his hand. Then he looked at his lieutenant. Her name was Nora Vasquez, and she was young and sharp, and already pulling up star maps on her screen. Dale said, "Plot a course to their home fleet anchorage. Take the slow route. I want them to see us coming." Nora did not look surprised. She nodded and started working. Down in the engine room, Chief Engineer Walt Brody heard the broadcast too. He was a big man with heavy hands and grease on his arms up to the elbows. He had spent his whole life fixing things that were not supposed to work anymore. He set down his wrench and picked up a plasma cutter. He told his crew to get the long burn coils warm. Nobody asked him why. At Reach Station, far from all of this, Ambassador Layla Odom was sitting at a long table inside the conclave chamber. Around her were the delegates of 7 alien worlds. They had all heard the broadcast. Some of them whispered to each other. One looked at the floor. Most of them said nothing at all. Layla knew what the silence meant. She had sat at that table for 8 years. She had watched those same faces look away every time something hard came up. They were not going to help. They were going to wait and see what happened next. So Layla stood up. She looked at the room and said 4 words. Humanity accepts the terms. Every head at the table turned. The room went quiet in a different way now. They thought she was giving up. She was not giving up. She was buying time. 72 hours was all she needed. She had already sent one short message to Dale Rutherford before she stood. It had 4 coordinates and 2 words in it. The 2 words were 72. Dale pinned the message to his tactical screen. Nora looked at the coordinates. She stared at them for a long moment. Then she started to laugh. Not because anything was funny. She laughed because she finally understood what Dale was planning. It was the most reckless thing she had ever seen on a star map. It was also going to work. Far away in his command chamber, Voth Karam watched the Sunward Grace get pulled into his fleet. He felt nothing in particular. Humans were always like this, scattered, slow, full of feeling and short on sense. He had broken 40 civilizations. This one would not take long. He did not know that at that moment, ships were already moving. Not because anyone ordered them to move. Not because a general sent a signal. They moved because those 12 words had reached every human ear in the sector, and something old and hard woken up in every single one of them. Something that did not know how to stay still when its people were taken.
Nobody sent a call for help. Nobody asked for backup. Dale Rutherford did not send a single message to any ship beyond his own crew, and yet they came. The first ship to show up was a cargo hauler called the Iron June. Her captain was a man named Pete Garner. He was 54 years old and had been moving freight between frontier stations for 20 years. He had no weapons on his ship worth talking about. He had a crew of 9 and a hull full of machine parts. When he heard the broadcast from Vothkaram, he turned his ship around and pointed it toward the Dreth fleet anchorage without saying a word to his crew. His crew did not ask him to explain. They already knew. The second ship was a frontier patrol boat called the Corabelle. Her captain was a young woman named Diane Holt. She was only 31 and she had never been in a real fight before. She called the nearest fleet station and told them she was moving toward the Dreth sector. The officer on the other end told her she had no orders to do that. Diane told him she did not need orders. Then she cut the channel and flew. By the time Dale Rutherford had covered half the distance to the Dreth anchorage, there were 19 ships behind him. Then 27, then 31. Nora Vasquez stood at her screen and watched the numbers climb. She turned to Dale and told him 31 unauthorized vessels were on approach vectors and more were still coming. Dale picked up his coffee. He said he had expected 20. Then he said they would wait. So they waited, and more came. There was a decommissioned cruiser called the Fort Carey that had been sitting in a boneyard for 6 years. 3 men who used to serve on her had gone back and gotten her running again. They did not have full weapon systems. They did not have a full crew. They had patched her engines together with parts that were not meant for that ship, and they flew her out anyway. She groaned and rattled the whole way, but she flew. There was a mining barge called the Old Betty Sue. Her captain was a retired merchant hauler named Cole Beaumont. He was 62 years old with bad knees and a gray beard and absolutely no business being anywhere near a war. He had spent 40 years cutting apart asteroids with industrial arrays. He looked at those arrays now and then he looked at his star map and he thought for a long time. Then he turned the Old Betty Sue toward the Dreth anchorage and told his small crew to strap in. Far away in his intelligence chamber, a Dreth analyst named Sekta was running numbers. His job was to predict what humans would do. He was very good at his job. He had models for every kind of human response he had ever seen. Petition to the Conclave, isolated strikes, retreat, negotiation. He ran his projections 4 times. Then he ran them again. None of his models had a category for what was happening right now. Civilians and warships and old broken vessels all moving in the same direction without a shared command. Without orders. Without a plan that his systems could detect. It did not make sense to him. A military force needed coordination to function. It needed a chain of command. It needed doctrine and structure and clear lines of authority. These humans had none of that. And yet they were coming anyway. All of them. Together. Sekta went to Vothkaram and told him about the ships. The warlord looked at the sensor data for a long moment. He saw the numbers. He saw the mix of vessel types. Warships alongside cargo haulers, alongside mining barges, alongside old rusted patrol boats that should have been scrapped years ago. Vothkaram said the humans had no coordination, no unified command, no doctrine. He said it the way a man says something he's very sure about. Sekta was quiet for a moment. Then he said that all the ships appeared to be following one vessel. Vothkaram asked which one. Sekta told him it was the carrier broadcasting on an open channel. He said the commander of that vessel appeared to be playing music. Vothkaram did not respond to that. On the resilient edge, old blues music drifted through the shared fleet channel. It was slow and worn, and it sounded like something that had survived a long time and did not plan to stop. Nora looked at Dale and asked if that was how he was coordinating 47 ships. Dale said it was not how he was coordinating them. He said it was how he was letting them know he was not scared. He said the rest they had figured out themselves. Nora looked back at her screen. 47 ships. No shared doctrine, no unified orders. All of them moving in the same direction because they had heard 12 words from a warlord who thought he already knew how this would end. He did not know. He could not have known. Because what was gathering in the dark behind Dale Rutherford was not a fleet in any way that Vothkaram had ever seen one. It was something older and stranger and much harder to stop. It was people who had decided enough was enough. And in the whole long history of the galaxy, nothing had ever found a good answer to that.
The Dreth fleet was a perfect machine. Every ship knew its place, every captain had a role, and every move was planned 3 steps ahead. Vothkaram had spent 40 years building it into the most powerful force on the galactic rim. It had never lost. It had never even come close. But it was not built to fight what was coming. On the dark bridge of the Resilient Edge, Nora Vasquez stared at the Dreth formation on her screen. She'd been watching it for 6 hours, a cold cup of something untouched beside her. She was thinking. The Dreth used predictive targeting, firing at where a ship would be in 3 seconds. It was deadly accurate against any enemy that moved in straight lines or followed standard combat patterns. It worked against enemies that thought about what they were doing. Nora's plan was simple. Nobody was going to think about what they were doing. She called every captain in the fleet. "When the fighting starts," she said, "fly like you're trying to get somewhere fast, but you're not sure where. Change your speed whenever it feels right. Don't hold formation. Just move." Pete Garner on the Iron June asked if that was really the plan. Nora confirmed it was. He paused, then said it sounded like how he drove when he was late for a delivery. Nora told him that was exactly right. The Dreth advance formation came in hard and fast, a display of force meant to break their will before a shot was even fired. But the human fleet scattered, not in panic, but on purpose, in 47 different directions. The Dreth targeting computers tried to track them all and began to choke. The predictive models needed patterns. They needed logic. Instead, they had Pete Garner weaving a cargo hauler through the Dreth formation like a madman. They had other ships accelerating and slowing for no reason. Then there was Cole Beaumont on the old Betty Sue. Nobody had given him a target. He just waited, patient, like a man who spent 40 years deciding exactly where to cut into a rock. He saw his moment when the Dreth flagship turned, exposing its hull for just 4 seconds. Cole pushed the old Betty Sue forward and fired every mining array he had. It wasn't a weapon. It was an industrial cutting tool. No Dreth engineer had ever imagined a 62-year-old retired merchant would use one against a warship. The flagship's forward shields buckled and went dark. In his command chamber, the Dreth officer Sekta Voros watched the battle data pour in, feeling something he hadn't felt in a very long time. He told his warlord, Vothkaram, that the humans weren't following any known combat doctrine. Vothkaram replied it was because they had no doctrine. Sekta Voros disagreed. He believed they had something else, something that worked where doctrine usually lived, but wasn't doctrine at all. He watched a cargo hauler, a mining barge, and a rattling old cruiser move through his fleet like water through a broken wall. He said he thought the word for it was instinct, and he wasn't sure his models knew how to fight instinct. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like and subscribe for more. 3 human ships died in that battle, not later. Right then, in the middle of everything. The first was the Fort Carey. She had been held together by the will of 3 old crewmen and parts that did not belong on her. A Dreth energy burst hit her port side, and she broke apart in seconds. There were 11 people on board. Their names were known. They had families waiting somewhere. The Resilient Edge recorded the moment and said nothing. There was nothing to say. The second was a small patrol boat called the Reed River. Her captain was a young man named Aaron Cole. He was 26 years old. He had been flying the Reed River for less than a year. He went in too close trying to pull the Fort Carey crew out before she broke. He did not make it back. The Reed River was gone before anyone could help. The third was a cargo runner with no weapons at all. She had come anyway. Her name was the Grace Morrow, and her crew of 4 had heard the broadcast from Bob Kara and decided that was enough. She took a hit that was meant for the resilient Edge. Dale Rutherford watched it happen from his bridge, and his face did not change. But something behind his eyes went very still and very hard, and it stayed that way. This is what HFY really is. Not winning clean, not walking away without cost. It is going forward anyway, and knowing some people will not come back and going forward anyway. The 2,000 colonists from the Sunward Grace were still locked inside a Dreth holding station at the edge of the battle zone. Voth Karen had kept them there on purpose. They were his answer to any human commander who thought about pressing too hard. One order from him and the station would be destroyed. Dale knew it. He had known it from the start. It was why he had not gone straight for the kill. Every move he made had been designed to keep Voth Karen watching the fleet instead of watching the holding station. He looked at Nora and told her it was time. Nora opened a channel to Cole Beaumont on the old Betty Sue. She told him she needed him to do the most difficult thing she was going to ask of anyone that day. Cole said he had already cut up a warship with a mining rig, so she should just say what she needed. Nora told him she needed him to board the holding station, not blow it up, not attack it, board it. Find the structural weak points the way he would on any large pressurized structure, and use them to open it from the inside. Force the automated systems to redirect power away from the detention blocks. Give the colonists a window to reach the evacuation pods. Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then he said he understood. He did not say it was possible. He did not say it was a good idea. He just said he understood, and turned the old Betty Sue toward the holding station. He docked through a mining access port on the station's underside. He put on a pressure suit and went in alone. What happened next took 31 minutes, and the resilient Edge monitored every second of it. Cole moved through that station the way he had moved through 1,000 asteroids. He found the walls that mattered. He found the systems that controlled the flow of power. He opened sections that were not supposed to be open, and forced the station's automated safety systems to panic and pull power from the detention blocks to manage the pressure changes. Colonists got 12 minutes. The evacuation pod bays unlocked. People ran. 1,847 of them made it out. 153 did not. The story does not look away from that number. It sits with it. Those were real people with names and ages and things they had planned to do when they reached their new home. They did not get there. That is the cost, and it is written into this story with both hands because it deserves to be. Cole sat in the airlock of the old Betty Sue afterward and did not speak. Dale did not fill the silence. Some silences are not meant to be filled. But Voth Karen had lost his leverage. The colonists were out. His one hold over the human fleet was gone. He had one move left, and he took it. He sent his full fleet straight at the human ships. All of it. Every reserve ship he had been holding back. It was the right military decision. It was also the last mistake he would make, because losing his patience was exactly what Nora had been waiting for. She looked at the incoming formation and nodded slowly. She told Dale they had committed. Dale asked if she was ready. Nora pulled up her screen and started working, and said she had been ready since she first looked at the star map back in Part 1. In his command chamber, Voth Karen watched his full fleet accelerate toward the humans. He felt the certainty come back. Numbers were numbers. His fleet outgunned the humans 3-1. There was no tactic clever enough to change that. Sectavoros stood beside him and said nothing. He looked at the data. He looked at the human fleet repositioning in ways that made no sense on paper. He thought about the word instinct, and he thought about the Fort Carey and the Reed River and the Grace Morrow and the way those ships had kept moving right up until the moment they could not. He thought about what kind of enemy keeps moving like that. He thought about what it would take to build a force that did not stop, just because stopping would be the sensible thing to do. He did not share these thoughts with his warlord. He already knew what Voth-Karam would say, and he was no longer sure his warlord was right. Voth-Karam said everything he had, every ship, every gun, every reserve he had been holding back. He did it because the numbers told him he could not lose. 3 Dreth ships for every human ship. That kind of math does not lie. But Nora Vasquez had not been building a plan around numbers. She had been building a plan around time. She had spent the whole battle studying how long it took the Dreth command structure to make a decision. Every time a new situation appeared on the battlefield, the Dreth captains had to report it up the chain. The chain had to process it and send an order back down. It was a good system. It was fast by any normal standard. It took about 12 seconds from problem to response. Nora had built the final phase of her plan so that a new problem appeared every 11 seconds. The Dreth fleet came in hard, and the human ships split apart and started doing things that had no name in any war manual. The old Betty Sue fired her mining arrays at a Dreth cruiser and blinded its sensors. Pete Garner on the Iron June drove straight into the middle of the Dreth formation and just stayed there, turning slowly so that no Dreth ship could fire at him without risking hitting one of their own. Diane Holt on the Corabelle found the seam between 2 Dreth destroyers and flew along it at close range, broadcasting false targeting signals that made both destroyers think the other was an enemy vessel. The Dreth captains reported it all up the chain. The chain tried to process it all. It could not keep up. Orders came back that were already out of date before they arrived. Dreth ships began to move wrong. Small errors at first, then bigger ones. In space, a small error at high speed becomes a large problem very fast. 2 Dreth destroyers collided trying to correct at the same moment. A third fired on a friendly vessel because the targeting data it received was 4 decisions behind what was actually in front of it. The tight formation that had looked so powerful began to come apart from the inside. Dale watched the tactical screen and said one word. He said, "Now." The resilient edge went straight down the center of the breaking Dreth formation at full speed. Walt Brody had the engines running at levels that were not written in any manual. The ship shook and groaned and flew faster than she had any right to fly. She came out the other side of the Dreth formation and turned and came back through again, and by the time Voth-Karam understood what was happening, his forward line was gone. The warlord opened a channel to Dale Rutherford, not to surrender. Voth-Karam did not know how to surrender. He opened it because for the first time in 40 years of war, he did not know what was going to happen next. And something old and proud in him needed to look at the man who had done this. Dale answered the channel. The 2 of them looked at each other across the screen. Voth-Karam said nothing for a long moment. Then he said he had called humans pathetic. Dale said he remembered. Voth-Karam said he had been wrong about what the word meant. Dale said a lot of people made that same mistake. Then he told Voth-Karam to take his fleet home. Voth-Karam closed the channel. He pulled his fleet back. He said nothing publicly. He did not explain himself to anyone. He just went. The galaxy watched. Then the galaxy started asking questions it had never asked before. At Reach Station, Ambassador Layla Odom walked back into the conclave chamber for the first time since she had walked out. She did not give a speech. She did not talk about human strength or justice or what the galaxy owed her people. She tabled one simple motion. She asked that the Sunward Grace colonists be returned to their destination and that the Dreth hegemony formally acknowledge the impoundment was illegal. It passed. First time in 400 years, a Dreth action had been put to a binding vote. The Ethrani elder found Layla afterward and said she had not demanded enough. Layla told him she had gotten what she came for. The elder asked what that was. Layla said one word. She said, Precedent. 3 months later, a hand-painted sign appeared on a frontier station at the edge of Dreth space. Nobody knew who put it there first. Within a year, the same sign had been copied onto 46 human stations and 12 colony ships and the hull of the Resilient Edge herself, where Walt Brody painted it on a slow afternoon in letters 1 meter high in dark red paint. Pathetic humans. We know it was not a boast. It was not a threat. It was the most human thing possible. It said, yes, we heard you. Yes, we know exactly what you think of us. And we came anyway. In his office, Sect Averroes finished his report on the battle. He had spent 3 months on it. His conclusion was 4 sentences long. He wrote that humanity had not won because they were stronger. He wrote they had not won because they were smarter. He wrote they had won because they were comfortable being broken and scared and still moving forward. He wrote that there was no counter-doctrine for this. The council dismissed his findings without discussion. Sect Averroes sat alone after the session and watched the tactical replay one more time. 47 ships moving in chaos that was not chaos. A retired miner boarding a warship station with a pressure suit and 40 years of patience. A cargo hauler turning slow circles in the middle of an enemy formation because nobody told him he could not do that. A quiet man with a scarred jaw drinking coffee and waiting for people to come who nobody had called. They had all come. Every one of them. Sect Averroes turned off the screen. He sat in the dark for a long time. He thought about 12 words broadcast across 12 light years. He thought about what those words had woken up. He thought about the sign on the hull of the Resilient Edge and what it meant to say, we know and still show up anyway. He thought that perhaps pathetic was never the right word. He thought perhaps there was no right word in any language he knew. Perhaps that was the whole point. The screen stayed dark. The story was over. But the humans were still out there, still flying, still moving forward, the way they always had, the way they always would.